Well, this isn't what I was hoping for. Hey guys, welcome back. We all waited so patiently for Crescent City 3, and the time has finally come where we can talk about it. I read through this book really slowly because it was 800 plus pages, but also because I wanted to absorb it and really process my thoughts on it. Now, this video is not going to be a spoiler talk. I mean, because the book was over 800 pages, we're not doing that. Instead, I'm going to focus on the things that really stood out to me. So what I liked and the great many things that I didn't like. I finished this book a few weeks ago and I really needed to sit with it. And I ended up coming to the conclusion that it wasn't what I was hoping for, especially after waiting 2 years for this book. Of course, it was 800 pages, so there were some things I did enjoy. So let's start with the likes because this section will be a lot shorter than my dislike section. Now, first off, what I did like was Bryce and Rune killing their dad. He had it coming. If anyone thought that he was gonna have some sort of redemption after the way that he's been a shitty father to Rune and then a shitty father to Bryce their entire lives and just been a shitty person in general, I don't think there was a way to redeem that. I don't think that there was a way to come back from that. So I think that Bryce starting to kill him and then Rune finishing him off was perfect. Next, Lydia, my girl. Honestly, her relationship with Rune, I felt more of a connection to those two characters throughout this entire book than I did between Bryce and Hunt throughout the entire series. I've never loved Bryce and Hunt as a couple, but especially with this book, I mean, they're already mates. So like, where else do we have to go in terms of relationship developments? However, Rune and Lydia are new and they're discovering their relationship. So I did feel, since we had heard so many bad things about Lydia in the past as the Hind, she needed to make this big move to prove herself. And in my opinion, she did. To be honest, I didn't feel the immense hate towards her that all of the other characters told me I should feel. I do think that's because, like, with the series, it's just been telling me how awful she is instead of actually, like, showing me her doing awful things. But I did like seeing her on their side for the book. There is one thing I am unsure about with Lydia, and that was her twins. I feel like Sarah J. Maas added Lydia having kids into the book and then having to give them up for the cause as a way to make her seem more human and to gain more sympathy for her. I don't feel like we read much about the Hind being like this horrible person. I didn't think that it was necessary, but it was a turning point in her story. She wanted to do better because of her children. Overall, I did love her and Rune being together. I feel like the lead up to their actual sex scene was more tension for me than the lead up between Bryce and Hunt the first time that they did it. I was more really rooting for their relationship. Moving on this love train, Baxton and his love for his dead mate, Danica. I loved how Baxton basically became one of the group, and he essentially served as that spot that Danica would have served. I loved that he loved her so much that he took up the cause in her honor, and I was just very happy to see him be a larger part of this book. Another thing I was annoyed by, though, I was annoyed that he disappeared by the end of the book. He was with them in the dungeons, he got out, he was with them, and then the final part of the book happened, and then he just disappeared. I felt like he could have been of use to the characters when they were actually going up against the Asteria at the end, but I was happy that he was there standing in for Danica when he was. And that's kind of the end of the things that I liked, which wasn't very much, and I'm, clearly not very happy about that. But let's transition to the things that annoyed me. First of all, this book did not need to be 800 pages. The book felt like this one big info dump. every chapter we had pages and pages of the characters learning information. None of the information that the characters ever learned felt natural. For example, we're sitting with the princes of hell being like, and they're like, hey, here's all this info, by the way. Or in the one part of this book when Bryce is in the A Court of Thorns and Roses world and they find the hologram of Thea's daughter, and it's basically like, okay, so here's this whole story about what happened all of those centuries ago. Everything felt so forced. Let's just sit here for chapters and chapters, and I'm just going to info, give you every single tiny little drop down of everything that happened. And I would find myself kind of like zoning in and out during these sections because, again, it would just be like info. It was just too much to me. This next one is a big one. I am so mad how much of this book did not take place in the Court of Thorns and Roses universe. Yes, I know this is not a Court of Thorns and Roses book. It's Crescent City. It's a different series. Yes, I know. So it's my fault that I assumed that those characters from A Court of Thorns and Roses would play a major role in this book, and then they just didn't. I set myself up for that disappointment. I understand. Silly me, I thought the whole group was going to be together and they were all going to help Bryce figure out what to do. I thought they were all maybe going to travel back to the Crescent City world with her and like get to know her world and help fight with her. I thought it was gonna be like this united thing. I did not see the distrust from both sides coming whatsoever. I didn't see Bryce being like, I don't know if you guys are really gonna help me and I don't really wanna tell you any info. And then I didn't see Reese being like, you have to tell me all this info and I don't trust you. I just didn't see it coming. I don't know why. I just thought they would all be like, oh my gosh, hello. Yes, of course we will help you. You poor thing. And Bryce would be like, oh my God, thank you. I needed help so bad. I don't know why. I just thought they were going to be like a big happy family. So the scene near the end of the book where Bryce sends her parents through the portal to Nesta for safekeeping during the final battle. And then once the battle happens, she goes and she gets them back. There was this heartfelt scene between Nesta and Bryce's mom when they were saying like their goodbyes and hugging and everything. And we learned that Bryce's parents got along with everyone. And it was just this jolly grand time when they were there. And Nesta and her mom had created this like motherly daughter relationship in their short time. And that is what I wanted and what I expected from Bryce's time when she was there. I expected her to form these like tight relationships. Like when we first got there and Bryce and Nesta were going through the tunnels, I thought that they were going to become besties. And I wanted them to. I seriously thought they would. I did not think that it was going to be like, oh, they spend time in these tunnels, Bryce gets the info she needs, and then she's like, cool, I got what I needed. I'm just gonna steal your knife, Azriel, and bounce. That is not how I saw that going. Obviously, that's my problem with thinking that this was going to be like, it's a crossover book. Obviously, it's not going to be like focusing. I literally just want to know who Azriel's mate is going to be or whatever. I want to know his love interest. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll get some hints in that for this book. So literally, yes, I did go into this book thinking it would be more a part of the Court of Thorns and Roses world than I did the Crescent City world. That's my bad. That's my fault. That's on me. But I still can't help being disappointed about it because that's just how I feel. Next is the way Bryce treated Hunt throughout this book. So Bryce was gone for the entire first part of this book, like the first quarter or whatever. In their time, it was like 5 days. During these 5 days, Hunt was experiencing this horrible torture in the Asteris dungeons. And then when she got back, there was no heartfelt reunion. It was just, hey, I know she has other stuff on her mind, like, you know, overthrowing the Asteria or whatever, but he's your mate. Like, show some excitement or relief or some tears or some sort of emotion that you are now reunited back together. Again, I had these high hopes that like when she transported back, it would be this lovely, beautiful moment where these mates are reunited and we have this beautiful time together. No, that's not what we got. And then I feel like it just got worse from there. I felt like throughout this book, she was just treating him like trash. It seemed like all she would do was be cold with him and brush him off and keep things from him throughout the rest of the book. Again, he's your mate. You should be telling him everything. You guys are a team. There was a reason why I was so focused on Lydia and Rune's relationship throughout this book, because Bryce didn't seem to care about her relationship anymore. Like, she got her mate, and then now she's basically like, okay, cool, I'm gonna shove my mate aside because I have some bigger shit going on. That's not how I feel like it should go. At least in A Court of Thorns and Roses, when other stuff was going on in book 3, Rhys and Feyre were still ultimately committed to one another. It just felt like Hunt was just another person to Bryce, just a part of the group that's there to help her defeat the Asteri, another ends to the means to the ends, whatever. And that just bothered me. Another Bryce issue I have. So I never loved Bryce. I had a video about the second book, and in that video, I believe I talk about also how I didn't love Bryce. She was just made to be an even worse character in this book series. And my other thing that I disliked about Bryce was how wishy-washy she was regarding the Fae. Yes, I know you are half Fae, you're half human, you hate the Fae because of your father, but I mean, you killed him, so we can move past that. But literally her talking about how her only goal was to defeat the Asteri and she didn't care about what happened to the Fae race next bothered me. Your brother is Fae. His best friends and their families are Fae. I hated that she used such broad statements when she was referring to her own kind. Like, just because in book 1 there were Fae that didn't help the humans doesn't mean that the entire species is that way. She was a bit small-minded and very bitter and clinging to that bitterness when it came to the Fae, and I found it pretty ungraceful. And then at the end of this book, she becomes Queen of the Fae, and then she's like, nope, no more Fae rulers, and then basically just leaves the future to them just completely up in the air. Throughout the whole series, Sarah J. Maas tried to make Bryce this character who would do anything for anyone, and how she kept telling us that she would sacrifice herself in the end to get rid of the Asteri. She would do anything, all etc. But the way she went about it just felt so messy. I hated how she wouldn't let anyone, including Hunt, her mate, that makes me so mad, her mate, in on her plans, and would just tell everyone right before they're gonna do this big major thing, like, oh, just trust me. I can't explain these things. There's not enough time. My thought was like, okay, then make time. Take 5 minutes and tell everyone what your plan is instead of being like, follow my lead. Like, I agreed with her whenever she would be like, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to. I'm not a leader. Like, I agree. I don't think she was cut out to be a leader. And I don't understand why everyone is looking at Bryce for her to lead. So I guess it makes sense at the end that she did give up, or she decided not to be Queen of Fae after she became the Queen of Fae. But this book was a mess. I am so mad. I don't even know what to say. Oh, so that's enough Bryce hate for now. I feel like I don't want to add any more about how mad I am about Bryce's character development in this book. So I'm going to move on to some different characters that I don't like. Fucking Therion. Just all of him and his point of views felt like filler that should have been cut. You sleep with the River Queen's daughter and then break a 10-year engagement because you never liked her. You just agreed to be engaged with her so that you could sleep with her. And then you run to the Viper Queen for protection from the River Queen, and then you leave her at the first opportunity. And then you take refuge on the Ocean Queen's ship, and then once she says that she's mad at you because the River Queen and the Viper Queen are both pissed at her for harboring you, you jump off her ship against her command, and then go and marry Flynn's sister to protect her. He is a mess. I can't, like, even just, like, laying all that stuff out, it's like, I'm sorry, what is this character doing? Like, he hates all of these predicaments that he puts himself into, but literally, they are his choices that landed him there. I just know that in future Crescent City books, Therion is going to be even more of a main character. Whew, and God, I just do not want to read any more from his point of view. I liked him as a side character in Crescent City 1, but as soon as we got to Crescent City 2 and 3, where we got so many passages from his point of view, I was out. Where I'm like, oh, this book could have been cut by like 200 pages. Yeah, we're cutting out all of Therion's points of view because it doesn't add anything to the story. And then also, we can cut out another 100 to 200 pages by cutting out all of the Ithyn stuff. It felt so jarring to have his own little side quest throughout this whole book regarding the real Fender heir who he killed and then tried to bring back to life. And then he ended up just killing Sabine to become the Wolf Prime. Like, what? I didn't feel like any of that had room in this book. It makes no sense. It had nothing to do with anything. I mean, they would all of the characters would go off and do like their own thing regarding like the Asteri or something to move along that plot. And then Ithyn would be like, no, I have to go do my own thing. This book was supposed to be Bryce's and Hunt's story, apparently. So why was that relationship failing? Why did they have no communication? First of all, I'm still mad about that. I'm still gonna bring that up. But why did we spend so much time with Ithyn instead of Bryce and Hunt in their actual storyline when Ithyn's story was a complete separate plot from the rest of the book? I'm so mad. It had no room in this book. No room whatsoever. Like, we are with Bryce, we're with Hunt, we're with all these characters trying to overrule the Asteri, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we have to go see what Ithyn and Therion are doing in their own separate fucking worlds and their own little quests. It made no sense. It made me so mad. It took me so much out of the story where it's like, oh, we're trying to overthrow these intergalactic rulers or whatever, but then Ithyn's over here like, I killed the heir. What am I gonna do? Like, shut up. It doesn't matter. This has no room in this book. I didn't realize like how mad I was about this book until I started like talking about it like this. I had high hopes for this book, and I think that was the problem, honestly. We waited 2 years for this book, and during that time, I had created this other book in my mind about what I wanted it to be and the way I wanted it to turn out. So I think that's why my disappointment is on me. Although I do think it should have been more epic. I mean, come on. We have this wild crossover between A Court of Thorns and Roses and Crescent City. It's all built up by the end of book 2, and then it barely happens. But again, it's on me. This is a Crescent City book, not a Court of Thorns and Roses book. So my bad. I guess I'll have to hold on to any of my future excitement for the next A Court of Thorns and Roses book, since that's what I really want. I know that so Bryce and Hunt's story is like over. So this Crescent City 3 has like finished their chapter essentially. So I believe we're gonna move on to other characters that I don't like. So I don't know when it's coming out, the 4th one, but I'm not excited for it. But I am curious to know, with this 3rd Crescent City book, how do you feel? Does anyone else feel the way I feel and am like disappointed? Or are there things that you're like, oh no, this was good. Like, I need to know the good that you feel. I need to know the bad that you feel. I need to know your thoughts. But that is it for me today. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I very much appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.